They're asking us to use direct substitution to evaluate, so there's not a lot of calculus going on here. What you're doing is you're plugging in negative pi over 6 in for x. So, and the reason we can do this is because we know something about sine and tangent. We know something about the behavior of their graphs. Tangent would make asymptotes wherever cosine would be 0, right? So that's at pi over 2 and 3 pi over 2, because cosine is the x-coordinates on the unit circle. So when we're at 90 degrees, in other words, when we're at pi over 2, cosine would be 0. And then that's going to pose a problem when you try to evaluate the limit, because you're going to have a divide by 0 error. But there's no divide by 0 error on this question. No risk of that. So negative pi over 6, just remember negative means you're rotating the other way. And if you remember your mnemonic device, all students take calculus, or it comes in different forms. Another way you can think of this is like this is positive on the x-axis, negative on the y-axis, and tangent would be the opposite divided by the adjacent. So the opposite's negative and the adjacent's positive. So this is going to be a negative answer. So this is negative something. So to figure out exactly what it is, this is where we either have to have memorization going on from pre-calc, or yeah, I guess either way it's memorization. But there's special triangles in pre-calc that we can memorize, and that helps us to avoid having to memorize every single trig value. So think of the unit circle. Think of a triangle drawn in the unit circle, like this one. Hypotenuse is 1. And so that means opposite of 30 is 1/2, and opposite of 60 is the square root of 3 over 2. So pi over 6, that's the same thing as a 30-degree angle, right? And so that means opposite of pi over 6 is 1/2, and the adjacent is square root of 3 over 2. We want to make that negative because we're down on the y-axis. So that means we're doing opposite divided by adjacent, so we're doing negative 1/2 divided by square root of 3 over 2. So you'd flip and multiply, so that's a negative 1 over 2's would cancel, negative 1 over square root of 3. Or in other words, square root of 3 over 3 would be the same thing. But we can take care of that in just a second. Okay, so that's how I've had my students do trig without memorizing all the different triangles. I have them memorize this one special triangle, and then the other one's really simple. The other values we have you memorize are for pi over 4, in other words 45 degrees, and the only way for that to happen in the unit circle is for the other two to be the same using the Pythagorean theorem, square root of 2 over 2. So those two triangles can help you with any sort of trig function. But you all might have your own way of knowing those exact trig values. This is a little bit tricky though. If you plug in pi over 6 in here, pi over 6 times negative 2 gives us negative pi over 3. So that is a 60-degree angle. Negative pi over 3 again is down here in the 4th quadrant, but now we're looking from a 60-degree angle's perspective. So the opposite would be negative square root of 3 over 2, because we're going down the y-axis. The hypotenuse is 1. So this is negative square root of 3 over 2. They probably want us to clean this up. I don't really feel like it, but okay. So this is negative 4 over the square root of 3. This is negative 4 square roots of 3 over 2. And then if we want common denominators. So if you want common denominators, you can multiply this by the top and the bottom by 2. You can multiply this by square root of 3. Just feels like it's getting yuckier. I'll check Newton's answers in just a second here. So that gives us negative 8 subtracted by 4 times 3, because square root of 3 times square root of 3 makes 3. And then on bottom, the common denominator we got was 2 square roots of 3. I guess that is cleaner, because 4 times 3 is 12. Negative 8 minus 12 makes negative 20 over 2 square roots of 3, which is negative 10 over the square root of 3. And then one last part. This is the answer. This was the answer just unsimplified. This is the answer just wasn't simplified. Another way of writing this is negative 10 square roots of 3 over 3, because you can multiply the top and the bottom of this fraction by square root of 3. And we usually do that because we don't like to have square roots in the denominator for some crazy reason.